Welcome to Mississippi Success, your one stop for conversations with individuals from and in Mississippi that are making a difference. If you're looking for examples of Mississippi's best, then this is the show for you. Now here is your host, Cyrus Webb.
And welcome back, everyone, to Mississippi Success. Glad you all could be with us. I'm Cyrus Webb, and once again, I'm joined by Melissa Banks. She's the founder of DMD Event Planning and Design. She's going to be bringing in a very special guest today. Melissa, glad to have you back on with us.
Hi, Cyrus. Wonderful to be back with you. I'm excited about today.
Well, let me just say this, Melissa, before you bring in today's guest. I have so enjoyed these conversations with you, and you and I were just talking. I'm excited about being able to do more of these with you, and I love what you're doing. For those who may not have heard you talk about this before, though, Melissa, why did you want to be able to shine a spotlight on entrepreneurs, namely female entrepreneurs during this time?
Because, I just feel like when women see other women pushing through, it inspires them to not give up, even when it looks tough. And the women we're talking to have shown that they have a vision and they have a dream, and they didn't let, because it got hard or their circumstances didn't look good, to give up. So they kept pushing so that they can push their businesses and their dreams into reality. And that's what I would want to see inspired into other women, to see women just pushing through and doing what it takes and not letting it get them down, not sticking to that no or it's not going to happen, not even accepting it, but moving forward. So the women we're talking to were able to do that, not only get through this time, but thrive. Some of the women we've talked to, this is their best year ever in the middle of a pandemic. And I just wanted the world to hear that and to hear how you don't have to give up because it's hard. You can keep going and keep believing in yourself.
Well, we are glad to be able to share these conversations not only on the radio dial in our home state of Mississippi, Melissa, at WYAD 94.1 FM during our Mississippi Success segment, but also thanks to our friends at iHeartRadio as well as Amazon Music Podcast. We're glad to be able to share them with the world. So, Melissa, who do we have on with us today?
Today, we're excited to have Patrece Johnson. Welcome to the show, Patrece. How are you today?
Oh, I'm doing great, doing absolutely amazing. So thank you for having me.
I'm so excited for you to share with us about your business and how you got started. Tell us, you're in Mary Kay. I know your business is Mary Kay, but how did all that get started? Tell us a little bit about how you got started in Mary Kay.
Oh, so this is exciting. So I come from a family where my mother has two girls. So it's just me and my sister. And my mother, though, is the sibling of my grandmother, which had 8 children. And out of 8 children, only one of them was a boy. So we understood in the family to not ever come around looking any kind of way, right? We are to always look our best whenever we're around. As girls, that's what she's always taught. Through all of our generations, just that. So long story short, my grandmother sold Mary Kay years ago. And so when I was in high school, grandmother sold Mary Kay. And, of course, it just seemed to get in our bloodline. It got in our bloodline some kind of way. And as a result of that, what happened was my aunts, who I call my auntie sissies, actually are some amazing women. And because of that, what is so amazing is that one of them, being in entrepreneurship herself, when I got ready to make the decision about actually doing my Mary Kay business, because I was in the business, but I really wanted to go full time. I was in insurance, but I was an auditor at the time, and I did a lot of auditing, underwriting for them. And so I was pregnant with my daughter and was just at this point where I kind of wanted something different. I had been exposed to Mary Kay a little bit, but I began to really want more. Again, let me say that I wanted more. And I wanted more for my child. And so I remember speaking to one of my aunts who played a major role in that happening. I talked to her about entrepreneurship. You got to know who to go to, because my mother, who I love dearly, was an individual who was on the same job for 26 years. So I knew that was not someone that I could talk to about entrepreneurship, because that meant to jump out, right? But my aunt knew, and she knew about it. She was aware of it, and she was a risk taker. And so because of that, she made a huge impact in me making that decision to become an entrepreneur 21 years ago. And being pregnant with my daughter, as we just celebrated her 21st birthday, I've got to say that now 21 years, she was the reason why I wanted to make a decision as such, and so I've been able to do that.
So, Patrece, that's so awesome. I mean, to hear you say you've been at this for 21 years, I know being an entrepreneur myself that it's not easy all the time. You have some ups, you have some downs. Tell us a little bit about your business in this environment. And Mary Kay is beauty, right? So how have you been able to maneuver your business or make the changes that you needed to make in your business in COVID-19 in this season?
Okay, so oh my gosh, this is so wonderful. So I like to say this, that preparation is required for the win. So a lot of times we're told to prepare for things, to store up for things. We're told seasons are coming, all this kind of stuff. But a lot of times there are things that we have, just instincts that are telling us to start doing something or working on something. So a lot of times it's up to us to figure out what those things are. So I've got to tell you, it was October of last year. October of last year, I had an opportunity to go to an event. It was actually called Believe Big Again. And you, Melissa, had a major part in that happening. And so as a result of that, I left that conference, Believing Big Again, and I knew that there was something that was holding me back. And I had to figure out what that was. A lot of times we'll make a decision. We'll say things like, I just need to decide. But we don't know what that decision is. And so what I had to realize was for me that I needed to find out what was holding me back from following through on any decision that I made. And once I figured that out, which came from, I'm just going to be honest with you, people say it as a cliche, but it came through with fasting and praying. I knew that my history, things that I had done before, did not get me to the place of what I desired. Now, I got some great places, but it didn't get me to the place that I desired. So I had to fast and pray and really find out what it was. And so I'm going to tell you, October through December, that's what happened. As a result of fasting and praying, the decision that I had to make was this, and this was before COVID hit, of course, and that was that I would no longer compromise. I understood what compromise meant, and compromise for me meant that when you compromise with someone, you meet them at a median. And at that median, you all come into an agreement. Well, I had already made a decision that I would no longer meet no one at a median. I would go ahead and operate to my full capacity because I had already tried that before. And some of us know they say insanity is doing the same thing, expecting something different to happen. So, Melissa, for me, it was no longer compromising, which was I was no longer going to be meeting anybody, which for me that meant to settle. So I was going to be my best self. So that was something that I sought out to do at the very beginning, Melissa. And so then what began to happen, I had to hear the instructions. The instructions that were coming to me were things that God was telling me. You know how he will speak to us in our dreams? We will wake up and there will be a thought that had come to us, and we know we weren't thinking nothing about that particular thing that he brought to the forefront of our mind. So I began to write those things down, and then I began to execute them. This was one time where I knew that if I knew the thought before, it was not the thought to think, and I needed to be brainwashed, and I needed to learn something new. So that was what was happening in January. So when the pandemic hit, my mind was already made up. And so I guess people ask me, well, Patrece, your mind was made up. What would you say for people whose mind wasn't made up? To accept what's in front of you. And so I never forget, March happened, and then in April, God woke me up, and he said, what perspective do you have? And I said, what perspective? What do you mean? And so the thing that he brought to me was he brought these devices to me. There was this picture that I saw of this Android phone, this iPhone, a MacBook, and a PC. And I put it together, and I looked at it, and he said, now that's the perspective of the world right now. Everyone has to see through these eyes, which were these devices. And he said, if they don't see through these eyes, they're not going to be able to make it. And I was thinking, oh, my gosh. So right now it is to get everybody to understand perspective means sight, how you see a thing. And that was the major pivotal part was with that understanding, knowing that if I wanted to see anything, it was going to come through those devices. Now, what did that mean?
Wow, that's pretty awesome. So what I got from what you said, Patrece, is, first of all, you had to make a decision. So when you went to that conference and it caused you to make a decision, and I think we all can pull from that because I believe once you make the decision, then you can move into action, which is what you did. And because of that decision and those actions, it sets you up to be prepared when the pandemic did hit, because the mindset, and anybody who hears me talk know I talk about the power of the mind. Your mindset was where you needed to be in order to be able to adjust, be able to lead your ladies that you work with into the right mindset to excel your business. So tell me, so you were prepared for COVID-19 in your mind and in the way you were setting up your business, but how did you get, I know how Mary Kay works a little bit, and that it also takes your team to get on that mindset. So how are you able to take your beliefs and your actions got you past your limiting beliefs, but you had to also get your team on board with that same belief in order to push the team forward? So how were you able to do that?
Oh, that is amazing. That's great question, because what I had to realize was I had to duplicate myself. So the very same thing that I did to myself, I had to share what it was that I did and tell them this is why I'm where I am. And so if you want that, this is not theory you're listening to. You're listening to somebody who's actually walked this out. So if this is what you want, you're going to have to duplicate what I did. And so with that understanding, it took me to just what you were talking about, which was the mindset. And the mindset is truly the question I had to ask them is to be aware of what your mind has been set on. Like, what is your mind set on? Because whatever it is set on, that's the channel it's going to be listening to. And so whether you're going to make this decision right now, it was the buy-in. It was the law of buy-in. John Maxwell talks about that all the time, and it is this. If what you're doing is not working, why not try my way? And that is what I laid on the table and presented to them. And one thing that I found that was most effective was to lead from the front. I'm not going to just tell you, and I'm not going to say go with me. I'm going to show. I'm going to show you, and I'm going to lead, and that's what I had to do. I had to own it, because if I did not own it, again, I was subjecting myself to someone else, which was compromising, and I had made the decision already to no longer do that.
Well, you know, Patrece, the things that you shared with us today can be applied in any business that you're trying to build, you know. So whether you're building a business with a team or whether you're a solo entrepreneur and building your business on your own, the concepts are the same. It's believing in yourself, taking the action, being willing to try something different to make it work. And that, to me, is the key to getting through a season that doesn't look like you thought it would look. So if you had to give some advice to another female entrepreneur that maybe lost their job because of COVID or started their business in the middle of COVID, like our guest we spoke with earlier in the week, what advice would you give that person?
Oh, my gosh. Okay. So this is what I have to say. I feel like a lot of this is attached to our identity. So the first thing is understanding who you are. We hear that, again, like I said, such a cliche. We hear that. But to understand who you are. So once you come into the knowledge of that usually comes through understanding your desire, what you want, which leads to purpose, which leads to us talking about the dream, all of that coming forward. So as a result of that, when you figure out who you are, you figure out what you like doing. And what you like doing is a natural talent. It's something that becomes natural of you to do. And a lot of times we've been so conditioned as women, especially women of color, we've been conditioned to what someone else wants or doing what they believe we should do, saying what they believe we should say, and not really taking the time to examine ourselves to see what it is that we want. What is it that Patrece D. Johnson wants? That was what I focused on, and that's what I'm going to encourage them to do. And from there, pull from that place, because that is where the dream is. That is where your purpose lies. And to understand that will bring you into the knowledge and bring you into the clarity of where you're supposed to go. That brought me to where I am today, which was about understanding my assignment. And with this, you all, my company, my organization, my business, had a 1,136% increase this year, my best year ever.
Wow, in the middle of a pandemic. That is so amazing. Thank you so much, Patrece, for sharing so much of your story. We heard from the beginning, the middle, and then where you are right now at the top of your game, your biggest year ever. I salute you, and thank you for sharing your story. Now we're going to turn it over to Cyrus, and he has a few questions for you as well.
Okay.
Thank you for that, Melissa. Patrece, really inspiring. So glad that Melissa is spotlighting you today to be able to show other people what's possible. I want to actually key in on two things that you mentioned, Patrece, because I think there's a big lesson there for our audience to take in. Yes, you have had an amazing 2020, but you definitely did not start where you are now. Last year, you published your book, The Beauty to Being Restored, and in that book, you talked about the importance of what we sow. Do you think that because of what you have sown in your life, both personally and professionally, Patrece, that's helped you in this time of reaping to be able to have the success that you have now?
Oh, Cyrus. Oh, this is like just music to my soul. Okay, so the book, it was actually released and published just a month ago. However, my book was written last year, so you're completely right. That's why I said it's a process. It was a process for me. It was something that I actually walked out, which was The Beauty to Being Restored, which had everything to do with identifying, knowing who you are, taking that time out for yourself. So if I had to answer your question with one word, the answer is yes.
So talk to us about the things that you discussed, though, in the book, Patrece, because part of that is, and this is where I think people get it wrong. I mean, they don't realize that part of the journey, I mean, even in the scriptures we're told the importance of the things that we're sowing among each other. When did you realize that if you wanted to be able to have this greatness, have this success, have this prosperity, that you had to watch yourself and what you were willing to take in and what you were giving out?
Because the one thing that I had to, this is how it came to me, Cyrus. It came to me like this. I had to understand the energy of my space. So I had to understand that whatever I allowed in my space was the direction that I was going to take, the direction that I was going to go. And so because of that, that meant that if something was in my space, it was either pouring into me or I was pouring into it. So with that understanding, good, bad, or indifferent, whatever the pour is and whatever the intake is, that's what you're going to reap. So it was to be aware of those very things and understanding that. And once you understand that you're going to be receiving as well as giving, and who you're giving to is going to matter, that right there will determine the results, the manifestations, the fruition, your fruit, your results.
So the other thing I want to talk to you about, Patrece, because I think it ties in well, ironically, with what Melissa was saying about what you do and what you're able to accomplish with Mary Kay. I mean, that a lot of that is external. But what I love about you, and I noticed it even in the email when you and I first connected, was the hashtag that you have, the beauty within. I think so many times, especially unfortunately young women, they're judged basically on what we see. What has it been like for you to show by example the importance of being judged by who you are?
Oh, which has everything to do with your identity. Because a lot of the times we're so busy being in the cosmetic business that I've been in. A lot of times we're talking about the exterior, which is the outside. And a lot of people don't realize that if it takes a lot of covering up on the outside, that's because you're really trying to cover up something that's happening on the inside. So let's go ahead and address what's on the inside. And that brought me to a place of understanding the power of releasing, the power to release. Because when you cannot fill something with something good if it's already filled with whatever the something is. So you have to understand the power of release. And there's some things that we must release and get out of us so that we can be filled back to the promises of what we were told at the beginning that God initiated for us as the individual that we are. So when that happens, it doesn't matter what anybody say. It doesn't matter about what they do. You are clear about who you are, and that beauty within you is going to shine. It doesn't matter where you are and who you're around.
Well, again, really appreciative of you, Patrece, and what you've been able to do, but also about who you've been able to be. And I think that's what people are going to really be able to get a lot from. Melissa, I'll throw it back to you with any closing thoughts.
I just want to say thank you, Patrece, for sharing your story and encouraging us. This was so inspiring to me, and I know to everyone who will listen to it. I wanted you to just tell us a brief moment before we close out what's next for you in your business and in your career.
Wow. Okay. So what is next is for me to duplicate myself. That is something that's always next. And that is, I know the joy that it brought within me and to be my best self. And that is whatever that entails as God fulfills his plan and purpose in my life through me, it is to help another woman to do the same. So with that, my organization, we're going national this year. We're excited about that, and I'm bringing a lot of women with me. There's a song that we have that I love that is by the artist. Y'all know her. She actually was in the Harriet Tubman movie, which was Cynthia, and her song is Stand Up. And so if I had to put in just some great words of what it is that's coming for us, it is the essence of that song of standing up. I'm taking my people with me. So that's what's happening for us, Patrece D. Johnson and the 3D Nation.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much, Patrece. This was an amazing conversation. Thank you for joining us. And thank you, Cyrus, for having us today. The conversation was wonderful.
Oh, well, look, it definitely was. And Cynthia Erivo's a friend, Patrece. I'm going to definitely clip this and let her know that that song has inspired you. So I know she'll appreciate that. Let our listeners know, though, how they can stay connected with you, Patrece, and connect with you.
Awesome. You can reach me at my website and my Instagram and my Facebook at Patrece D. Johnson. That's P as in Paul, A as in Apple, T as in Tom, R as in Red, E as in Echo, C as in Cat, E as in Echo, D as in Diamond, then Johnson. And you can find me again, like I said, at Facebook, Instagram, and my webpage with that address, that domain.
All right. And make sure you guys definitely get her book. Thanks to Melissa setting up this chat. I ordered mine on Amazon, Patrece. So make sure you guys go to Amazon and get The Beauty to Being Restored by Patrece Johnson. I'll be writing my review next week, Patrece, definitely, and encourage our audience to get theirs. And definitely looking forward to staying connected with you. Melissa, how can our audience stay connected with you as well?
They can connect with me on my website at DMD Event Planning and Design, and Facebook at DMD Event Planning, and Instagram, DMD Event Planning and Design.
All right, Patrece, Melissa, glad to have you all being a part of today's Mississippi Success broadcast, and we thank you, our audience, for tuning in to another great segment of Mississippi Success. Until next time, I'm your host, Cyrus Webb, saying, as always, enjoy your day, enjoy your life, enjoy your world. Thank you all for choosing Mississippi Success today. You all make it a great one.